Welcome! Here's the must-have intro. I am 𝗂𝐿𝐴𝐿, founder of NutriPlanet, and on my blog and YouTube channel you'll find healthy whole food plant-based recipes, practical tips for those transitioning to whole food plant-based lifestyle, and meal plans for both plant-based and vegan candida diet. I haven't done a proper recipe video in a while. I think the last one was homemade cashew yogurt sometime in July. Now that's a long time ago. So I thought I'd fix that. By the way, I'm so sorry if you expected the next video of the porridge series this week. Don't worry though, the last two videos will come. I just thought I'd give porridges a little break and share a seasonal and very delicious recipe with you. If you follow my Instagram stories, then you most probably can guess that we are going to make pumpkin bread today. That is totally gluten-free, oil-free, refined sugar-free, as all my recipes. I really recommend following me on Insta if you want a sneak peek into my kitchen as I share my daily meals and other culinary endeavors. Most pumpkin bread recipes use pumpkin puree as ingredient. I aim to differ once again and included raw grated butternut squash in the batter. And there is a specific reason for that. If you're interested to know, you're gonna need to watch till the end. So let's get started with the recipe. Let's check out the ingredients. Starting from the wet mixture. Peanut butter. You can use any other nut or seed butter as well. Just look for additive-free varieties. That's a flax egg. That is ground flax seeds and water mixture. I'll show you in just a bit how it's made. Plant milk. I used oat milk, but you can go for any kind you like. I'd recommend unsweetened though. Date sugar for some sweetness. I'll show you some alternatives in the next clip. As far as sweeteners are concerned, you can go for either coconut sugar, date sugar, or even stevia. If you're on Candida cleanse diet, I would suggest opting for 𝗂𝗶𝗁𝗀𝗃𝗁. Unfortunately, I don't have any at home to show you. My bad totally, I forgot to include a crucial ingredient, apple cider vinegar, that would react with baking soda and makes the bread rise. And then of course some grated pumpkin. I used butternut squash. Wanna know why I use grated squash instead of puree? Watch till the end. And now the dry ingredients. Coconut flour, that is not the same as ground coconut. Look for the fat percentage of about 12. Then oat flour. You can also grind your own from rolled oats. Himalayan salt, turmeric and baking soda. If you're concerned about the sodium in baking soda, use 3 times as much low-sodium baking powder. And finally the spices. Nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves, cardamom and ginger. That's all for the dry ingredients. And here I make the flax egg. I mix 90 grams of water with 3 tablespoons of ground flax seeds and let it sit until I prepare everything else. Let's mix together the dry ingredients. First goes in oat flour, then coconut flour, now the spices, and finally turmeric, salt and baking soda. Mix all the ingredients well. In case you have bigger chunks of flour, separate them with fork. It's about time we grated the pumpkin. I prefer to use my food processor because I tend to injure my fingers whenever I make an attempt with regular grater. I then pick out the bigger pieces, store them in fridge and use up in other meals. Let's mix together the wet ingredients. Add date sugar to flax egg and mix until the sugar is well incorporated. Next, pour in peanut butter and mix it in well. Now that you've got a really thick paste, start adding oat milk gradually until all is used up and you've got a nice runny and smooth mixture. Alternatively, you could prepare the wet ingredients in a blender or using a beaker and immersion blender. And finally, mix in apple cider vinegar. Here you have it. Let's pour this creamy gooiness, can I even say that, onto the bowl of dry ingredients. Use a spatula to mix everything really well, making sure there are no flour lumps. If you see some, like I have here, try to separate them with spatula. And last but not least goes in grated pumpkin. The batter is quite thick, but try to fold it in the best you can. It requires some effort and strength, but you can do it. I bake my bread in this handmade irregular sized loaf pan, but you can totally do with a standard one like 25 by 9 centimeters. Line it with parchment paper. I prefer it to greasing the pan. Now let's transfer the batter into loaf pan and tuck it in really nice. You don't need to worry about pressing it too hard, as it's neither sourdough nor yeast dough. Okay, now let's bake it at 175 Celsius for 70 minutes until golden brown. I don't have a proper cooling rack, so I cool my bread on folded kitchen paper. Before you remove the bread from oven, stick a toothpick into it. I couldn't show it to you while the bread was in the oven, so here it is now. It needs to come out clean or almost clean. Lift the bread out of the pan. I just love how easy it is when using parchment paper, and place it onto cooling rack or folded kitchen paper. Fold the paper away to allow the bread to cool faster. And it absolutely needs to cool down completely before you cut into it, or it would deflate and end up being less fluffy. And now you can cut your first piece. I really wish you could smell all those divine autumnal spice flavors. I think it's better to cut another slice and spread my homemade hazelnut butter on it. Did you know that it's super easy to make your own one ingredient nut butter? I link to my almond butter video below. And now I take a bite. Fluffy, moist, but not wet, and above all, delicious. Of course, I took many more bites after that. Another way to eat this pumpkin bread is with homemade applesauce. To be honest, I prefer it to nut butter because there's already a good amount of peanut butter in the bread itself. I've been jealously keeping the secret of raw grated pumpkin versus pumpkin puree throughout the video. I think it's about time to reveal it. If you know me, you must have guessed that it's got something to do with health reasons. And you are right, of course. Now let's get to the wisdom. Starchy veggies, grains and legumes develop resistant starches when they are cooled after cooking. Resistant starch is a type of carbohydrate that our digestive enzymes cannot break down in the stomach or small intestine. They therefore reach the colon intact, resisting digestion and feeding our good bacteria, as well as keeping blood sugar stable. That's in a nutshell. Cooking and cooling, best overnight, increases the resistant starch content. However, if reheated, the effect is lost. So, if you use pumpkin puree in a recipe and then bake it, you lose the benefits of resistant starch. I hope you found this piece of information interesting and useful, and if you did, hit the subscribe and notification button because there's always more to come. In the meantime, watch my other videos because there's tons, and browse my blog for even more recipes, tips on transitioning to whole food plant-based and vegan candida diet. Yes, it's candida and not candida, the way I've been pronouncing it until this day. But I always keep on learning, and I actually looked it up from Cambridge Dictionary. So it's not that you could go any higher than that, is there? So yeah, it's candida.